I'm Anna Salas. I'm putting this presentation on through my kind of channel framework, which is Accelerated Conscious Evolution. Thank you again for taking the time to come here today. And let's see how we do here. New format for me. All right, so the first thing I want to share is the intention, and then we're going to do a Christ star breath together. Those of us who are here to set the energy in the space, which is Rasha, Ira, Christ star now. Take a breath. Inhale. Exhale. Rasha, Ira, Christ star now. Okay. I always invite my technology to cooperate with whatever we're about. So I'm going to just do that for a minute and thank them, thank the elementals for joining here. So the first thing that I would like to share with you is I'm actually quite, I wouldn't say that I'm nervous. I would say that I'm feeling like this is a really interesting topic, and I think that it's important. And what I've been through since 2017 and even before regarding the trackers has been really very, very dynamic and interesting and incredibly healing for me personally. And I think helpful to the people who are my clients and who study with me, because I've been sharing my process all along. So one of the things that the beloveds asked me to get clear in terms of intention from the start is that there's no shame, there's no blame, and there's no stigma attached with the dynamics of the dark flower awakening, because as you already know, much of this it's multidimensional, it's goes on through lifetimes, and we're very fortunate right now to have the energies in place and the amazing advanced work that has been done so that we're able to address the genetic issues that we have. We're able to go into the processes that we need to transmute those energetics and then move forward from a place that is healing and healed and whole. And we are ready to take on our missions without obstruction. So I've got some people who are waiting to be admitted. Yeah, so let's see if I can do that from here. Excuse me a minute while I do this. Thank you. Okay, they should be joining us in a minute and I can exit that. So this is my intention. My experience has been that this dark flowering is something that could be specific to themes and indigo children. And the beloveds have helped me to see that right now we need everybody activated, all hands on deck, so that we can, all of us have various ascension missions that we need to accomplish. And I think it's important that we come together as a community to support each other in that in whatever way we can. This is one way that I can do that. Okay, so there's, my sense of why we might be here today. I'm going to start with the foundation that we're all somewhat familiar to varying degrees with Keylontic sciences, with the MCEO teachings and the transformation and the change into Arrayas Productions. And because of this information and our familiarity, we may have at least heard one or more references to the dark flowering affliction. My perspective, the spoken references in various workshops, and that's where I sort of was led to get awareness about this, they have not been frank. They haven't been direct. They haven't been to the point, and all the dots haven't been connected with regard to how we manage this situation if we're in it. So from my perspective, the dark flowering at its core is a biospiritual, distorted sexual energy event. And it is everywhere. And we know, if we're familiar with the KS and the MCEO and all the rest of this, that there is at least consideration that there is a team dark scenario playing out. I don't need to go into a lot of detail around that because that's not my focus. So the euphemisms about distorted sexuality and phrases such as swarming, I don't believe are helpful, especially to KS newcomers. And I would like to say that it's been observational to me that dark flowering trackers are really everywhere, and many of them are actively trolling online, where the contacts begin as innocent flirtations, but then quickly escalate into energetic tagging, targeting, frequency attacks, and even sleep state torture. And I've been through all of those. I'm happy to say I'm completely out the other side. From my perspective, these aggressive, destructive behaviors are being directed at themes and also at indigo children whose light bodies have been activated, but there's much more to go before they're completely free of the various metatronic mutations that support and ignite and sustain plasma body activation. Okay, so that's where I'm coming from. So, I think we need all hands on deck. Then I would like to play for you a clip from Sliders 12, which is just going to be a review of what we may already know. And if you'll give me a second.
Well, that fortunately is not going to happen because the chances of us are anchoring, as long as even a small group of us like this, a small group of people can make a huge difference in things like this. If they are people that incarnated from the right spaces for the right reasons as Templar guardians, and people don't get called to these workshops unless they actually incarnated for that reason. So you have in your code someplace some keys that were a gift to the shield. This is why sometimes it takes forever for the work to come, and it won't come until the group assembles. Because everybody drops a little bit of their keys, and it puts in missing sequences in the planetary grids that allows certain frequencies to anchor with the information that they need to get the next step. So this information that you'll see tonight is not just my information or me and Az's information. This is something all of you contributed to bringing in. We just wrote it down.
We'll understand a little bit more about what it means to have a tantric or a phontic contract. And we're also going to find out about something called plasma phase generators, which are something that we're going to be doing a journey to visit one on Sanctuary Island, because we're going to be invited to a ceremony on Sanctuary Island where there are a set of activations that will function in the same way as these much larger plasma phase generators do. The plasma currents that are generated are referred to as the core cosmea plasma currents. They come from what are referred to as the core suns. And we're going to look a little bit at, in the structure that we know, what are the core suns? Where are they? What are they? There's a particular type of energy that has to do with the difference between external creation and internal creation. They both occur at the same time as we're growing from Partakai 1 to Partakai 2 and the whole light body, spirit body structure. There's also an internal version of that occurring at a different angular rotational particle spin. So it's from those areas that are referred to as the deity planes that they are very populated, just like the outer planes are populated. This is where we're being hosted through on the Crystal River host. And a lot of us are from there in the first place. We're going to look at a little bit about the two words that have to do with roles that I'd mentioned, the Yoshi and the Aiden, and then the Yodin, and things like that. So we have a little bit of understanding of what those their gender roles as far as magnetics go, electromagnetics, but it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a male body and a female body. It can be, female and female, but one of them's running electrical, one's running magnetic, that kind of thing. But there's an interesting process that femmes birth in by that sets up that particular structure, because they have to quantum balance energy when they're incarnating into a system, because they have ascended already through the Adashi when they're incarnating into a system, because they have ascended already through the Adashi Adept programs and gone into being a Christ star. So they have to bring their quantum in carefully when they're coming back into an external creation system. And a lot of us here would fit into the femme category. So it means we actually did birth in those ways. A lot of us will have tantric or fontric contracts when we phase out of the ability of that cycle. So in between now and then, and that's not very long from now, really. It's not that many years, because the fallen ones have begun the externalization of their anti-Christic hierarchy with what is called the dark flower awakening. And it was interesting. In India, we did see a bit of that happen, where just certain people, and not all the time either, it'd just be like at certain moments, and they just seriously weren't themselves. I don't think a lot of them remembered, even if they would just shift, and you just knew that was not the person who was usually there. And you could feel the really nasty frequency sometimes that was running. And it wasn't that people were trying to be mean or bad or anything. It was that they had trackers. And the trackers, called the Fatali, they track you through numbers of lifetimes. They target Christics, especially femmes, actually, because femmes are the ones that carry the plasma abilities. And if it turns on, they can protect not only themselves, but a lot of other life forms too. So what the Fatali like to do is track femmes and intercept them and their activation of their lotus system, their internal biology, before it activates to the plasma stage, when it's just starting to activate on the light body stage, and before the plasma kicks in. So they go in and they literally use frequency to reverse the light body structures, which will reverse the flowering structures that would normally be our living lotus generators inside of ourselves. And that has begun. They have begun the waves of activating their fatali, and the they is, they're actually what people call demons. They're not just FAs. There's FAs and there's FAs and there's FAs, and then there's demon folk, right? They're a whole different category of FA. They're ones who chose to do that. They chose to, the path that they're on. They enjoy the path that they're on. They have no interest whatsoever in changing that path. And they're pretty much more scheming and more intelligent than most FAs that you'll find. They have more resources available. And a lot of them had once upon a time been femmes that came out and got entangled in the dramas in the outer matrices. And they had the abilities of plasma body at the time. And they lost the abilities to run core plasmas when they went into fall and their codes reversed, but they still have the ability to do some of the things with the lotus systems that became other types of flowers, the dark flowers, that don't look like lotuses. They do other things, and they suck energy off life forms and that kind of thing. So there's a wave of activation of those troops on the ground, and that's why the beloveds have begun the full wake-up call for the Christic shield to let us know. I mean, it's really funny, even when you listen to like people that go to church and those kind of things, they've been talking about it for ages. The forces of dark and light rise up, and they're going to have a fight. Yeah, well, kind of, yeah. It's happening. It's been happening, but it's going to be happening more so. And they want us to be prepared. One of the things to be prepared is be able to, first of all, protect your own self. And we're going through natural activations. We're hitting a level where we would naturally start kicking in with the light body level of our lotus is activating, because we're running enough frequency to do that. Usually you have to get to a point where you've integrated most of your density for avatar level of frequency, and that's when it will start the sprouting process of the seeds of your lotus system that live in the chakra seals. And normally the light body structures would come out first, and then as they progressed and accreted frequency, they would start pulling in the core plasmas, which would create the seal around them so they couldn't be harmed. But as we're moving, the Christics are moving into their organic light body lotus level activation. They've put the trackers on us, and they're going to try to take over the light body lotus system before we can activate the plasma lotuses.
It's not about grid work. Well, maybe I'll show the clip after we're done, because this isn't going to take very long. And if you're here, you're here. If you're not, you've probably already seen it, but it focuses on the twin dynamic, and it focuses on the fatally and the dark flowering. So in addition to what I'm aware of, Ascension being about grid work, there were 10 years of grid work that happened all around the world. And while I was not a part of the KS community, I was doing my own thing, and I was traveling all around the world, leading retreats and workshops, and we did do grid work. And I was doing it based on the information that was coming directly through my direct line, and that was a very, very wonderful, for me also, about 10-year period of time. Okay, so let's look at the twin flame dynamic, which for me, the twin flame phenomena that I see happening on Facebook, I don't know how many groups that are focused on this phenomena. Again, this is my perspective, that those groups and the dynamic are part of the fatally construct. It's a perfect social holographic construct and frequency insert to advance the dark flower affliction. It's a perfect opportunity for a tracker to show up in your life, masquerading as a twin flame. The experience is that there are intense sexual desire triggers. That's an encryption package, which will hit a light worker or a healer or someone who has just come into activation of their light body, which makes them very visible to these trackers. And the twin flame then targets the second and third and some of the first chakras of the ones that they are going to go after. So when this happens, this generates a huge reverse spin energy anchor, and that actually manifests as an electrical metatronic etheric double, which then entwines not only in the trackers. It's already entwined in the tracker, and it's already intertwined with their first and secondary neurocircuitry. But then it goes after that happens also with first, second, third, and this is something that I found specifically not discussed in the MCEO information or in the, let's say, the elemental clearing rooms. There's no conversation about where the spleen chakra is implicated in this process, and it is. So we also know that the secondary neurocircuitry in this dynamic will be overtaken. The tracker has already been largely overtaken. There, you know that the goal is the complete overtaking of that energy field soul person. And also in this dynamic, the target begins to lose control of their own energy field. And so if they've activated their light body, this becomes incredibly confusing, because the distortion begins to create what the fatality's big agenda is about, which is fear, doubt, mistrust, and separation. So when this happens in the target, many times people who had a direct line and who were really, really clearly connected with their guidance, and it was trustworthy, find that that's no longer the case. And then the other part that I think is really interesting, which I think is very much core to the, let's call it a distorted twin flame dynamic, is that there won't be a heart energy connection. There will be lots of sexual energy. There will be lots of talk, but the actual feeling of the energetic connection, which is so distinct and so discernible, will be absent in terms of what you feel coming from the tracker. Although he or she, we can be talking about women here, of course, as trackers, may use the words, oh, I feel so much love for you, or there's a whole encryption package that goes with that language. And the difficulty is that a lot of times the light workers and the healers are so open, and they very often tend to be empaths. They can't distinguish their heart chakra energy from another person's heart chakra energy. So they are, they're sending out their energy, they're feeding a tracker with their energy, but they can't feel the distinction to recognize that their tracker isn't sending them a return frequency vis-a-vis the heart connection. What's the game? It's all about quanta. How much quanta can be grabbed from an ignited light worker healer who is just not aware of these other dynamics. And if they are successfully tagged by a tracker, they're not going to become aware of these dynamics. They're going to find themselves spinning and looping. Their relationship to time is going to be distorted. They're not going to be on the timeline, on the Christic spiral that's moving them forward. So this is a very complicated dynamic, but ultimately we know it's about how much quanta who's going to have how much quanta as the reality the realities are going to continue on to unblend, and we're all moving forward the way we're going. And it's getting closer. We're coming into 2021 now. So when I look at the larger fatally agenda, what happens with the dark flowering, what is accomplished? And as I said, in the United States, we are looking at dark flowering is really in a major takeover mode in our society on every level, D1, D2, D3. The dark flowering accomplishes separation at all levels of human interaction, and this is done by any means necessary without conscience or any sense of regret. It's all about power. There's lust over love, so you end up with a hot sex connection over a hot connection. And there are many people, light workers, lots of them, there's all different age groups, but people are in the paradigm, in the programming. There is this little programming that the hot sex will lead to a heart connection, and it will lead to someone actually loving you, and that's rare. The heart connection should be what leads into the hot sex. But this is, again, it's a reverse program. The goal is to disable, derail, disrupt light workers, healers, and angelic themes through what I call the seduce and destroy program. And that takes a light worker into a toxic relationship. The goal of this is to really blow up the energy field, to blow up distinct apparatus within the energy field, within the first, second, and third chakras. And this will happen when people have not gotten to the point where they're released themselves from the Vesica Pisces harness. So this form of separation, when it hits a family, a group of friends, or a spiritual group, is going to generate separation. And the other tricky bit about this affliction is not everyone gets it. Not everyone is afflicted. And that is key to the agenda of separation, because you can begin to point fingers. You can say, well, this person's got it, but I don't. Or you can begin to deny that it is existing or happening at all. Or you can say, well, there must be something about them that this is what's going on for them. So we can unpack that. I'm not going to take time to do that today. I'm really looking at the broad strokes. Then again, we go into the physical separation aspect of the twin flame dynamic, which is the agenda is to obstruct Christic frequency resonance and to augment mind control frequencies being absorbed into now vulnerable and distorted energy fields. And that's why in the twin flame distorted dynamic, the story is all about union. It's all about how you're going to come into union, but you never get there. Years, I've watched this. People have spent years on this. they've waited for someone, this one, that. I mean, it's really, I actually get a lot of information watching tarot card readings, especially the ones that are focused around twin flame. It is so painful to recognize so thousands, we are talking thousands of well-intentioned people who are in physical separation. They're interacting with an a kind of a metatronic electrical etheric double that will come into them still via the astral plane, and they are having, quote, relationships there. And again, it's divided because some of that can actually be something that can happen with an authentic twin Tantra Asia twin contract. But how do you tell the difference? So where we end up is that the ascension hosting process through this Beta Ali agenda is being obstructed. And that leads to quanta issues, which lead to, will the ascension gates become unstable? This includes our own personal gates. We have ascension gates within us, as you people already know. Okay, so here it is. Here's the dark flowering goal. It is to access at the light body stage, implement, seduce, and destroy, disable the themes so that there's not enough plasma to keep the personal gates open or all the groundwork that's been done. And it will keep a theme, an indigo person who's coded for plasma. It can actually abort their ability to activate the plasma body and then use those frequencies. That's a serious problem where we are right now. So, I'm going to go back to presentation mode and we'll see if this is going to work. When did it stop being able to see it? Did it just stop at what point, Anastasia, if you can hear me? Hello?
Okay, sorry, when you put up that big screen, now we can see your screen, but it's not the right screen. And it stopped when you admitted other people.
Okay, so, all right, so you've missed quite a bit then. Yeah, the admitting late people is something that's not one of my favorite things to have to deal with. All right, so I'm gonna just go back to present and hope that this works. And welcome to new people. I'm sorry you were late.
Here.
Can you see this now, Anastasia?
Yes, it's good now. You got it.
Okay, so we've recorded, and I'm actually not going to go back because there will be a replay available. So for me, well, I will go back just this one slide. So here's let's say this is Johnny Theme right here. And before COVID, he was out hanging out and being social and doing what he was doing. His light body is activated, and this can be seen by a fatally tracker. And this is Johnny, light body worker, about to be tagged from someone in this group. Okay, so this is the basic dynamic of what happens. You have a tracker who has already been tagged probably several lifetimes ago, who is now, unbeknownst to them, it could be they're not conscious of it. They have entered the domain of a fatally dark overlord, and they're going after shine, and here's the target, and here's the tracker. And it's really just all about quanta. That's what it looks like. All right, so what do we do? One of the things that I think we need to do is we need to really see the patterns in our relationships. We need to do the work that is provided by the beloveds in all of the teachings, because our genetics are different. And this was something that was interesting to me in the Facebook conversation. People would say, oh, well, the elemental clearing rooms takes care of all of that. Not true. It might take care of all of it depending on your DNA, depending on how much Shona light you're carrying, how much Shalaya light you're carrying. We're not the same. So I really wanted to do this, go into this conversation, because I think there are some broad assumptions that aren't necessarily ones we shouldn't question. So we're looking at our relationship patterns. We're going to heal the genetics. We're going to do the work that we need to do that as individuals. Hopefully we do it in collective. In the small group of people who I'm associated with in our soul group, we tend to do this together, which has been very powerful and helpful for us. And then we need to understand that we're activating DNA codes, but it's different for everybody. And I want to emphasize that. Okay. So again, I think at this time, we need to be willing to sit quietly and just be open to considering that the dark flower affliction is something that may be going on with us, and that we need to be willing to consider our willingness to heal this for ourselves, for our twin, if we know that we're aware that we have a twin, and for others in the broader human collective. And what I have learned from the beloveds is that they know there's no shame or no blame here. And when we can settle ourselves in that place of no shame and no blame, I think that the opportunity to move forward progresses very quickly. Between 2017 and this past summer, I had 4 trackers come after me. And the space that I held while that was going on was just absolutely being completely awake and aware and noticing everything and questioning where, because I have a direct line where I was like, well, what's that really all about? But at no time did I get into an antagonistic energy with the trackers, because that's counterproductive. As you all know, that just feeds them more of your life force. So if you don't take away anything else from this today, just hang on to that. The methodologies are different, but it's all about a tracker. In my instances, they've all been men. And we have a lot of guys here today, and maybe in your instances, could be a woman, could be non-binary. This isn't about gender. What it's about is, what piece of self-love are you missing? Because the trackers can read your energy fields, and they can read your encryption, and they can know what you're missing. And then they can pretend to offer it to you. And that's one of the big hooks. So if you don't take anything else away from today, you can take that away. Okay, so what's the healing process? So my personal healing process, it's been 7 trackers over the course of my life. Between 2017 and almost the end of September, this has been nonstop daily inner work for me. And it includes my work as a guide and as a teacher. This has been nonstop. And there's a D that's missing, but Sliders 5 describes the misalignment of the light body and the spirit body because of the Vesica Pisces harness. Correcting this misalignment and the reorientation of the Aveus body is essential to healing the dark flowering disruption, which interferes with the organic maturation of the light body into lotus anatomy and plasma body. So if you're interested, you have access to it. You can probably get that through Chris Comstock. Just take a look at Sliders 5 and really pay attention. In my own experience, the 4 black hearts of Metatron had to be removed before the realignment of my light body and spirit body was possible. And that also included all the preliminary shadow work to build up enough quantum so that when the moment came and I could actually see where my light body was misaligned on the etheric level, I could just go and grab it and boom, put it exactly where it needed to be, removing that 15-degree offset to the left, which is a problem. So, Ephem's desire to incorporate various plasma body activations can be thwarted by unrecognized interactions with dark flower trackers, disruptions in the, other misspelling, I gotta fix this. I was in the chakra, that should be chakra energy field. And hopefully you guys are not working with this 7 chakra energy field anymore. And then there are all the things that can happen, which include failure or something going awry with the Christ star awakening or the release of the Vesica Pisces harness, which will then impede the plasma body activation. Let's see if there's anything else I want to say from this slide. I think that's good. So my story, I've already told you a little bit about it, but I have full soul memory. I know where I came from. I know why I'm here. My whole crystal memory matrix has activated, and there are people who are working with me who would be able to validate for you if you wanted to ask them. And so from 1989 on, I have been gradually working on accreting frequency and clearing mutations that were part of my birth body, because I walked in 1989, and you're familiar with that process. You know how that works. Say, hey, Ashiana, walk in. So there are interesting things that happen with that kind of way of incarnating twice, as it were. And in reviewing my own soul history, the first profound memory of being dark flowered was a lifetime where I was a slave in a household, and my job was to bake bread, and that's all that I did. And the master of this particular household, of course, I was available to any male guest, or I guess female. I didn't remember anything with women, but male guests who could use me sexually any way that they liked. And as a result of that lifetime, I gave birth to a child by rape. For me, it was rape. It wasn't consensual. And then in the course of that lifetime, I had no interest in that child because it was a child of rape. And I neglected that child. I didn't take care of that child. And before that child was 2 years old, it died in an accident that was a result of my being an unconscious cow who didn't care, my heart wasn't open. I was pretty clueless in that incarnation. And that awakened me to an incredibly profound part of my being at a soul level, through loss, through tragedy, through death. And in that instance, it ignited a profound transformation in my whole organization of, we know we have thousands of incarnations all operating simultaneously. That was one particular one that was very powerful for me, because the rapist for me in that lifetime was someone who became a tracker who followed me through subsequent incarnations. And I have another memory where the person who was my biological father in this lifetime, also a tracker, an active tracker. I watched him operate socially. He was married to my mother they were married over 50 years. He was still a tracker. He was still going out and dark flowering people. So in our relationship, that was challenging, because one of the memories that I had with him was one in which I was a young girl, and I was placed in a pen in the middle of a stadium, and this man, who was again my father in that lifetime, just told me to wait quietly in the pen, and he would, he'd come and get me later. And I was very young, so I didn't question any of this. And I didn't question any of it until the lions started breaking the pen apart and started tearing. And that was a relationship, again, a fatally representation of this incredible destruction of breaking bonds, heartbreaking bonds of trust. So, this lifetime hasn't been that, it's been so much better. I'm really grateful. But I do, because of these experiences, I can read a room, I can identify a tracker, and I am able to do what needs to be done, that I remain clear, coherent, safe, frequency aligned in my direct connection, and I'm able to successfully, in a way, turn a tracker and move them into a heart connection, which then really makes it much harder for them to remain. It also enables them to move into hosting, because one of the things that's talked about in Sliders 12 is we're going to bring our themes home kicking and screaming, but there's no conversation about how that exactly happens. So I have more details about that, which I could share with you at another time. Okay, I think we're about done here. Let me just see what else I've got. This is me. That's my little crystic seed atom, trying to figure out what the heck is going on as I'm, in the great creative ocean, about to do some more manifesting and creating more bodies. And then this is me with my monadic twin this just represents the mess that happens and the difficulty in connecting lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, and then hoping that in an ascension cycle you're going to figure it out this time maybe. And I wanted you to be really aware. I know that in the MCEO teachings and in the elemental clearing rooms, there's lots of information. There's a lot of, and even in the Chismatic series, which gets a little bit closer, but it's still missing information. So this affects the solar plexus, the second chakra, the root chakra, but nobody's talking about the spleen chakra. And I have a lot of additional information that I will be sharing, in my own environment. And then if anybody on Facebook is interested, we can figure out how to do that. But then you get on the rainbow bridge, and then you get aligned with your Christ star, and then you and your twin and your monadic seed atom, everybody's kind of getting happy. It's looking good. And so this is just my synopsis of why I'm here, because I was guided, I was led. I had no interest in ascension whatsoever, at all, none. And then after my first experience with the Gaia just telling me that she was going to divide in 2016, and there were going to be other timelines, because I moved fluidly, multidimensionally, and through time and space. And I was invited to, do you want to be part of that? I was like, sure, well, yeah, absolutely. And it was at that point I was given some other techniques, one of which is the Sacred Master Key, which was me beginning to work with making small co-creative Merkabas and understanding about the counter-rotating spins. Then in 2017, the really kind of weird, it's always about past life stuff with these trackers. Connecting with another tracker and being aware of what that past life story was all about, and then being able to navigate that. So from 2016 on, I was inundated with additional multidimensional skills and memory, and these biospiritual interfaces built trust regarding the KS information, for which I am very, very grateful. So during a 5-week grid work retreat in Scotland in 2017, that's when my 7 chakra energy field dissolved on its own accord, along with the Vesica Pisces harness, and I fully opened, and my bliss channel opened up, and flowering opened. That was wonderful. And my traveling companions and I were properly introduced to the elementals, who taught us how to call them in and work with them to co-create. And then once we returned to the United States from that journey, we established our own home portals to practice holding grid energy, holding gates, holding the energy that we need to be able to do that as a personal manifestation. And so my own portal is very well established where I live, and it's part of a crystal grid in my garden. And it's been full game on nonstop energy for me. And I was already a healer. I'd been a healer for, I don't know, more than 20 years before any of this happened for me. And I was very familiar doing my own work on a parallel track. I would say I was very much on a beloved parallel track to what was going on with MCEO, which is why I didn't need to see it before I needed to see it in 2018, which was when I was introduced to it. Okay, so, I'm using this lovely little image to kind of be a kind of an organic shape of an akasha. And here are, part of Kai, part of K, there we go. We got those little elements of foundational creation. And this for me just is a kind of a little bit of a rendering of what happens when we open the Christ star energy and we open into our plasma energy flows. For me, it kind of feels like this, although the feeling of the plasma is more like, it's kind of like Jello, like transparent Jello, but not quite as thick and gooey. Okay, so my journey began in 1989 with my awakening. And then from that time on, the beloveds have been with me. And they have invited me to apply all that I'm learning since 2018 with the KS MCEO information. They have invited and asked me to apply it to my already well-established path of accelerated conscious evolution that has been going on for more than 2 decades. So now I'm going to stop sharing. We can open it up for discussion and Q&A if any of you are still here and you're interested.